Are you ready to take control of your life and crush fear once and for all? You Are the Boss is a transformative self-help audiobook that teaches you how to train your brain, embrace challenges, and turn obstacles into opportunities. Through practical strategies, real-world examples, and elite-level mental coaching, this audiobook will show you how to Chapter 1. Fear is a choice. Own it. Fear is not something that exists outside of you, waiting to strike like a random lightning bolt. No, fear is a habit of the mind, a pattern reinforced over time by hesitation, doubt, and inaction. It is easy to say, fear is natural, but far from being natural, it is often manufactured by your own perception of what could go wrong. The real question is not whether fear exists, it always does, but whether you allow it to govern your choices. You are either ruled by fear or ruling through it. And the moment you make that choice consciously, you take control of your life. Think about elite athletes, CEOs, and successful entrepreneurs. Every single one of them faces fear daily: fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. What separates the winners from the rest is not the absence of fear, it's the ability to reframe fear as information, not limitation. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Notice that he doesn't say, "You have power over events." He says, "Your mind is the battlefield. Master it, and you master everything else." This isn't theoretical. Consider Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. When she was starting her billion-dollar company, she described the constant anxiety of pitching her ideas to investors. She says, "I learned to embrace fear as a compass. If I felt fear, it meant I was onto something meaningful." She didn't fight fear, she owned it, letting it guide her actions rather than paralyze her. This is the first principle you must adopt. Fear is information, not instruction. So, how do you do this in practice? Let's break it down. There are 3 daily habits you can adopt that retrain your mind to treat fear as a tool instead of a tyrant. Label your fear. Every morning, take 3 minutes to write down your fears for the day. Be specific. Don't just write fear of failure. Write fear that my proposal will be rejected by my boss. Naming fear turns it from a nebulous, paralyzing fog into a concrete problem you can manage. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Labeling fear is the first step toward reaction, not reactionlessness. Micro-exposure. Take one small, deliberate action that challenges your fear daily. If you fear speaking up in meetings, speak first. If you fear rejection, send that pitch email. As Robert Cialdini writes in Persuasion, exposure changes perception. Small acts of courage pave the way for larger acts of confidence. This is action over avoidance. You don't need a grand gesture, you need a consistent, tiny act of defiance against the fear. Reframe mentally. Each time fear arises, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? What is this trying to tell me? Not because the fear is inherently useful, but because your interpretation gives it power or takes it away. As Goggins says, you are in danger of living a life so comfortable and soft that you will die without ever realizing your true potential. Reframing fear transforms it from a barrier into a mirror of opportunity. It's not about eliminating fear. It's about choosing discipline over impulse, choice over paralysis. Think about the Quranic verse, "Do not kill yourselves or one another. Indeed, Allah is to you ever merciful." Surah An-Nisa 4:29. One of the interpretations is that fear and despair often push people toward inaction or self-sabotage. You are commanded, in essence, to act, to engage, to move despite the mental resistance. This is not just spiritual, it's practical. You might think that fear is purely emotional, but in reality, it is neurological. Neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky explains that the amygdala reacts instantly to perceived threat, often before the rational mind can intervene. That's why fear feels overwhelming. But here's the good news. The prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain, can retrain the amygdala through repeated practice. This is why the habits above are not optional. They are scientific. Small, daily exercises rewire your response to fear. Fear also communicates information about your values. If you feel fear when taking a risk, It often signals that you are moving towards something meaningful. As Jim Collins puts it in Good to Great, greatness is not a function of circumstance. Greatness, it turns out, is largely a matter of conscious choice and discipline. Notice the words, choice and discipline. You are not a victim of fear. You are a conscious agent deciding to move in spite of it. Let's pause to summarize the essence. Fear is not a signal of danger. It is a reflection of potential growth. Treat it like a compass, not a stop sign. Every act of courage begins with small, deliberate exposure. Habits compound into courage over time. Your mind can be trained. Discipline is not the absence of fear. It's fear transformed into action. So how does this translate into your life immediately? Let's make it concrete. Today, speak first in a meeting, pitch an idea, or make a decision you've been postponing. Journal 3 fears and the rational action you will take against them. Reframe each fear with a learning question. What can this teach me? By the end of this week, you will notice something profound. Fear loses its grip. The mental habit weakens. You begin to feel empowered not because the world has changed, but because you have chosen to change your mind first. It's easy to say, face your fears, but harder to do it consistently. That's why we need structure, naming, exposure, and reframing. Not only do these habits reduce fear, but they also build a sense of personal mastery that will carry into every other domain of life. Just as a soldier trains before battle, so too must you train your mind before it commands your choices. And finally, remember this. The more important issue is not whether you experience fear, but how you respond to it. Look at every major breakthrough in history, from David facing Goliath to modern innovators like Elon Musk launching rockets that could fail spectacularly. Fear is the same for everyone. Choice and action are the differentiators. You mastered your fear. You learned to own it, to extract information from it, and to act in spite of it. You have the tools, the daily habits, and the mindset to move forward. Now, let's talk about the true currency of your life, obsession and relentless focus. Chapter 2. Obsession beats motivation. Motivation is fleeting. It comes in waves, a surge of energy that convinces you to act for a moment, but it rarely lasts. Most people rely on motivation as if it were a renewable fuel, and when it fades, so does action. The real question is not whether you feel motivated, but whether you are willing to be obsessed. Obsession is different. Obsession does not wait for inspiration. Obsession does not negotiate with your comfort zone. Obsession compels you to act consistently, relentlessly, every single day, regardless of mood. In reality, hard work without obsession is scattered energy. It's like lighting a match instead of keeping a fire burning. Just as a skilled sculptor chisels relentlessly at stone to reveal the form within, obsession chisels away at distraction, hesitation, and mediocrity. It creates results not because it is dramatic, but because it is consistent, deliberate, and unrelenting. Consider Elon Musk. Musk doesn't wake up feeling motivated to build rockets or electric cars. He wakes up with obsession. He immerses himself in problem-solving to the point of personal sacrifice, often working 100-hour weeks, pushing through failures that would paralyze most people. Musk himself said, "When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor." This is not motivation. It is purpose-driven obsession. Motivation might get you through the first week of a new project, but obsession carries you through decades of setbacks, criticism, and doubt. Jeff Bezos, similarly, built Amazon not because he was motivated daily, but because he was relentlessly focused on a singular vision, customer obsession. He didn't rely on bursts of enthusiasm. He created systems, rituals, and habits that enforce consistency. Bezos made a conscious choice to obsess over customer experience, over efficiency, over long-term growth. As he famously said in his 2016 letter to shareholders, if you decide that you're going to do only the things you know are going to work, you're going to leave a lot of opportunity on the table. That is obsession, a willingness to engage continuously with the work that matters, even when success is uncertain. It's easy to say, be motivated, but harder to maintain obsession for years under pressure. Motivation is reactive, obsession is proactive. Motivation responds to emotion, Obsession shapes it. Motivation is a spark. Obsession is the steady flame that withstands wind, rain, and doubt. The Stoics understood this principle deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Obsession is that kind of relentless action. It doesn't wait for permission from mood or circumstance. So, how can you cultivate obsession in your own life? There are 3 daily habits that make this achievable. Define your obsession in writing. Each morning, take 5 minutes to write down the single outcome that will dominate your focus that day. Don't make it vague. Don't write, work hard. Write, complete the first draft of the proposal and submit it before noon. Clear targets sharpen your mind. As Cal Newport notes in Deep Work, clarity about what matters creates focus, and focus is where results are born. Obsession without clarity is wasted energy. Build micro-rituals that enforce attention. Obsession is more habit than emotion. Jeff Bezos, for instance, had a practice of making high-quality decisions early in the day, reserving the energy to obsess over what truly matters. You can emulate this. Set 2 to 3 micro-rituals, whether it's the first hour of your work blocked from interruptions or a pre-work reflection on your top priority, that anchor your focus every day. The real question is not whether you have willpower, but whether you have structured your environment to support obsession. Document progress obsessively. Keep a daily log of wins, failures, and lessons learned. Obsession thrives on feedback. By recording progress, you create a tangible sense of movement, reinforcing your commitment. As Goggins says, motivation is crap. Obsession is measurable. Obsession is growth you can track every day. Tracking progress also rewires your brain to reward consistency, not fleeting emotion. Obsession is not just about working harder. It's about aligning your daily actions with your highest purpose. Not because it's trendy or inspiring, but because results are generated where energy, focus, and discipline intersect. Far from being stressful, this kind of structured obsession reduces anxiety. When your daily actions are aligned with your long-term vision, you stop wasting mental energy on trivial choices. Religious texts also echo this principle. The Quran states, "And whoever strives only strives for the benefit of himself. Indeed, Allah is free from need of the worlds." Surah Al-Ankabut 29:6. Striving, or jihad, here is not about momentary effort. It's about sustained, disciplined, relentless action toward a meaningful goal. Whether you like it or not, obsession, focused, principled striving is a universal law of achievement. It's not that motivation is irrelevant. It's that motivation alone will never carry you through the inevitable obstacles. It's easy to be motivated for a day, a week, even a month. It's harder to maintain focus across years, to endure failure after failure, to continue when your peers give up. Just as a professional musician practices scales for decades to master an instrument, so too must you practice obsession daily, intentionally, methodically. Let's make it concrete. Today, apply the following. Write your obsession in the morning. Be precise, follow one micro-ritual that supports your focus. Block distractions, record one measurable action you took toward your obsession. Do this every day, and after 30 days, your brain will rewire itself. Obsession will begin to replace fleeting motivation. You will notice a shift in energy, clarity, and decision-making. Your actions will no longer be reactive to emotion. They will be driven by a relentless, purpose-built engine inside you. The more important issue is not simply working hard or wanting success. It's the unwavering commitment to a singular focus, the disciplined obsession that moves mountains over time. No one can deny that motivation can inspire initial action, but what's often overlooked is that success is rarely about initial sparks. It's about sustained heat applied to the right problem over years. You've now learned that obsession beats motivation because it is deliberate, measurable, and relentless. You've understood how to build daily habits that anchor this obsession into your life. You've seen that obsession is not about emotion, but structured, purposeful action toward meaningful goals. You are building the kind of mindset that allows fear to be dominated, hesitation to be neutralized, and dreams to be transformed into reality. You have set the stage for the next level. Now, Let's explore how failure is not your enemy, but your fastest path to mastery. Chapter 3: Fail Fast, Win Faster. Failure is one of the most misunderstood forces in human life. Most people treat failure as a punishment, a sign that they are unworthy, incompetent, or doomed. Failure is feedback, a mirror showing exactly what needs correction. The real question is not whether you will fail, it's whether you will use failure as a lever or let it become a cage. Thomas Edison, when asked about his thousands of failed attempts at inventing a light bulb, famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Notice the mindset. Failure is not an endpoint. It is a learning engine, a source of knowledge that accelerates mastery. Every mistake carries within it the seeds of progress, but only for those willing to examine it, extract the lesson, and adjust their course. Modern startups illustrate the same principle. Companies like Airbnb, SpaceX, and Netflix didn't succeed on their first try. They launched, experimented, pivoted, and learned relentlessly. As Eric Ries writes in The Lean Startup, the only way to win is to learn faster than anyone else. Not because they avoided failure, but because they embraced it as fuel. The faster you fail, the faster you iterate. The faster you iterate, the faster you dominate. This is not easy to internalize. It's easy to say, failure is feedback, but far harder to act in a way that leverages every mistake. Most people respond to failure with hesitation, self-criticism, or avoidance. This is where discipline, not mere optimism, comes into play. As Seneca advised, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Think of each failure as mental resistance training. Just as physical training strengthens muscles through micro-injuries, failure strengthens decision-making, problem-solving, and resilience through repeated exposure. So how do you practically implement this principle? The key is to fail fast, learn fast, and act faster. Here are 3 daily habits that reinforce this approach. Experiment deliberately. Each day, identify one area where you can test a new approach or idea, even if the outcome is uncertain. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Take calculated risks. As Nassim Taleb writes in Anti-Fragile, some things benefit from shocks. They thrive and grow when exposed to volatility, randomness, disorder, and stresses. Your experiments are your controlled shocks, microfailures designed to strengthen your skill and insight. Log and analyze every setback. Maintain a daily journal of mistakes, setbacks, and minor failures. Document what happened, why it happened, and what you will do differently next time. This turns failure from an emotional event into actionable data. As Kahneman notes in Thinking, Fast and Slow, reflective analysis allows your mind to detect patterns it would otherwise ignore. Over time, these microlessons compound into deep intuition and foresight. Normalize rapid iteration. Set a goal to act quickly, assess outcomes, and adjust without overthinking. The speed of iteration matters more than the magnitude of any single success or failure. Just as Goggins emphasizes in Can't Hurt Me, you don't rise to the level of your expectations, you fall to the level of your training. Training your mind to iterate rapidly turns failure into an engine for growth rather than a stop sign. Failure also carries emotional lessons. It teaches humility, patience, and perspective. The Bible captures this principle in Proverbs 24 verse 16. For a righteous man falls 7 times and rises again. Notice the focus on rising. Failure is inevitable, but repeated inaction is optional. Obsession with perfection is the enemy of action. Obsession with learning from failure is its ally. It's not that mistakes are inherently good, it's that your reaction to them determines your trajectory. Just as a martial artist uses sparring not to defeat their partner but to improve skill, you must treat each failure as a training ground for competence and courage. The more you embrace the process of failing, reflecting, and adjusting, the less you fear it. Fear itself begins to shrink in proportion to your mastery. Real-world applications are everywhere. Consider Elon Musk again. SpaceX faced multiple rocket explosions early on. Each failure cost millions of dollars, drew media ridicule, and could have ended the company. But Musk's mindset was deliberate: analyze, adjust, relaunch. The repeated failures produced innovations that transformed the entire aerospace industry. This isn't the exception, it's the blueprint. Whether you like it or not, repeated small failures are the fastest route to mastery. It's easy to say, learn from failure, but harder to extract lessons under pressure. This requires reflection, discipline, and mental toughness. Start small. Today, identify one action where failure is possible, even likely. Take it, record the outcome, and write down 3 lessons. Adjust tomorrow's actions based on what you learned. By the end of 30 days, you'll notice a profound shift. Mistakes no longer paralyze you. Fear of error diminishes. You begin to see failure as a powerful feedback loop rather than a verdict. This is the essence of mastery: constant adjustment, relentless iteration, and unwavering persistence. Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War, "In the midst of chaos, there's also opportunity." Each failure is chaos, a disruption of expectation. But within that chaos lies the opportunity to refine your strategy, sharpen your focus, and accelerate toward your goals. Don't just take my word for it. Look at the tech giants, the innovators, the athletes who push limits daily. Their victories are built on foundations of repeated, deliberate failure. Daily practices anchor this principle in your life. Make failing fast a ritual, not a panic. Embrace it, analyze it, iterate. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of unstoppable growth. Far from being shameful, failure is the fastest shortcut to mastery when treated as actionable intelligence. By now, you understand that. Failure is not punishment. It is feedback. Rapid experimentation accelerates learning, reflection, and adjustment compound microlessons into unstoppable competence. You mastered fear. You channeled obsession. Now, it's time to silence the inner critic, the voice that resists action, doubts competence, and magnifies every failure. Chapter 4: Silence the Inner Critic. Your mind will never stop talking. It is relentless. From the moment you wake, it generates commentary, judgment, and doubt, much of it invisible, yet profoundly influential. The real question is not whether your inner critic exists. It always does, but whether you listen, negotiate with, or silence it. Far from being a neutral observer, your inner critic is often fear in disguise. It masquerades as reason, logic, or caution. But in reality, it exists to keep you small, comfortable, and unchallenged. As the saying goes, your inner critic is just fear in disguise. Bosses fire it. Consider what Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. The lesson is profound. Most of the arguments your mind presents are not truths, but interpretations. They are stories your brain tells to protect you, often at the expense of growth. The more important issue is that unless you confront these stories, they dictate your actions, shape your fears, and limit your potential. You might think the inner critic is harmless, a quiet voice that occasionally sows doubt. In reality, it manipulates behavior, causing hesitation, procrastination, and self-sabotage. Navy SEALs and elite performers know this well. In training, candidates are pushed to extremes where self-doubt is amplified and mental chatter becomes overwhelming. The key tactic these performers use is cognitive reframing, recognizing the critic's voice, labeling it, and consciously redirecting it toward productive action. Jocko Willink, former Navy SEAL officer, calls it taking ownership of the narrative. The inner critic is neutral. What matters is who is steering your mind. Just as a gardener removes weeds to allow plants to grow, you must remove mental obstacles that stifle performance. The inner critic thrives on inaction and avoidance. It whispers, "You're not ready. You might fail. What if people laugh?" Don't fight it with anger. Redirect it with discipline. Albert Ellis, a pioneer of cognitive behavioral therapy, emphasizes, the best years of your life are not behind you. They are within you, waiting for the rational mind to disarm irrational thoughts. Reframing transforms self-doubt into strategic insight, fear into fuel, and hesitation into deliberate action. So how do you do this on a practical level? There are 3 daily habits that silence your inner critic and transform it into an ally. Label the critic. Every time negative self-talk arises, write it down or mentally identify it. For example, that's the fear of failure talking. By naming the critic, you externalize it. It stops being an unquestioned authority and becomes an object to analyze and manage. Marcus Aurelius reinforces this. Begin each day by telling yourself, "Today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, but none of these can touch me unless I let them." Naming the inner critic is the first step to reclaiming authority over your mind. Reframe and redirect. Replace the critic's commentary with a productive question. What can I learn from this challenge? Or what is the next small action I can take? Not because the critic is inherently useful, but because your interpretation controls its effect. This is the essence of Stoic and modern cognitive wisdom alike. It's not that negative thoughts vanish. It's that your response to them determines the outcome. Anchor in deliberate action. Obsessive reflection without action empowers the critic. Combat it with immediate, small, deliberate steps. Navy SEALs call this embracing discomfort through movement. When the mind says, "Stop, you can't do this," you act anyway. Far from being punishment. These acts train the brain to associate fear and doubt with progress, not paralysis. As David Goggins explains, you will never learn to master your mind without doing the work while it screams at you to quit. It's easy to say, silence your critic, but harder to act consistently under pressure. This is why discipline matters more than mere willpower. Daily repetition rewires your mental circuitry. Small, repeated acts of reframing and action gradually diminish the critic's authority, replacing it with a voice of reason, strategy, and courage. Think about the Quranic guidance in Surah Al-Imran 3:139, "Do not weaken and do not grieve, and you will be superior if you are believers." Inner critics thrive on weakness and grief. They magnify doubts, inflate risks, and immobilize potential. But belief, combined with deliberate action and mental discipline, disarms the critic. This principle is universal across philosophies. Whether Stoic, Islamic, Buddhist, or modern behavioral science, the core idea is the same. The mind can be trained, directed, and mastered. No one can deny that the inner critic exists. What's often overlooked is how malleable it is. Just as athletes train reflexes, leaders train decisions, and musicians train focus, you can train your mind to reject unhelpful commentary and embrace actionable insight. Daily routines are the mechanism. Let's make it practical. Today, start a morning journal with one section dedicated to identifying the inner critic's messages. Reframe each message into a productive question or actionable statement. Execute one deliberate action to contradict the critic's warning. By doing this daily, your inner critic transforms from a tyrant into a signal of growth, alerting you to areas that require courage, attention, and mastery. Over time, hesitation diminishes. Fear loses power. You gain mental clarity and authority over your own choices. Consider the real-life case of Serena Williams. Even at the peak of her career, she reported mental chatter before every match, doubts about stamina, strategy, and outcome. Her routine? A strict mental discipline. Visualizing success, reframing challenges as opportunity, and executing her game plan regardless of fear. This is cognitive mastery in action. You control the mind does not control you. The more important issue is this. Silencing the inner critic is not about suppressing thought, it's about choosing which thoughts govern your life. Your success depends not on eliminating doubt entirely, but on directing mental energy toward productive action, learning, and growth. By now, you've learned that your inner critic is fear in disguise. Naming, reframing, and deliberate action diminish its power. Mental discipline transforms hesitation into decisive movement. You mastered fear. You built obsession. You embrace failure. Now, you have the tools to silence the voice that questions, doubts, and resists. Your mind can now become a weapon of clarity and decisive action. Next, we turn to the principle that accelerates all other habits: deciding before you feel ready, action over waiting, courage over hesitation. Chapter 5. Decide before you feel ready. Waiting for confidence is the fastest route to stagnation. Most people think they need clarity, preparation, or the perfect conditions before acting. This is a lie your mind tells to stay comfortable. The real question is not whether you feel ready, but whether you will act regardless of readiness. Far from being reckless, decisive action under uncertainty is the hallmark of every pioneer, leader, and high performer. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action despite fear. Consider soldiers in combat. No private ever wakes up fully confident that they will survive a firefight. Yet, through training and discipline, they act. They move forward even when uncertainty is overwhelming. This is prepared decisiveness, the understanding that waiting for certainty is a luxury that often results in failure. Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War, "Opportunities multiply as they are seized. Hesitation kills opportunity. Action creates it." Entrepreneurs embody the same principle. Jeff Bezos did not wait until e-commerce was fully proven to launch Amazon. Elon Musk did not wait for rockets to be guaranteed to reach orbit before trying. They understood a universal truth. Action precedes confidence, not the other way around. Motivation, clarity, and certainty often arrive only after momentum begins. You might think, I should prepare first, but in reality, preparation is perfected by execution, not contemplation. Waiting for confidence is the mind's way of preserving comfort. It whispers, "You're not ready. Wait a little longer. Gather more information." But just as a muscle grows through tension, decisiveness grows through micro-experiences of action under pressure. Action is the training ground for courage, the laboratory for confidence. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Action defines the outcome. Thought alone does not. So how do you cultivate the habit of deciding before you feel ready? The key is to practice decisiveness daily through small, controlled exercises. There are 3 daily habits that accelerate this skill. Micro-decisions under time pressure. Each day, choose one small decision to make immediately instead of overanalyzing. It could be as simple as sending an email, pitching an idea, or tackling a difficult conversation. Not because these decisions are monumental, but because they train your mind to act without waiting for perfect clarity. As Goggins emphasizes, you are in danger of living a life so comfortable and soft that you will die without ever realizing your potential. Micro-decisions expose you to discomfort safely, teaching you decisiveness incrementally. Action-first reflection. When facing a task, start with one immediate step before analyzing. For example, if writing a report, begin typing before perfecting the outline. The action generates feedback, which informs better decisions. Modern behavioral science supports this. Daniel Kahneman notes in Thinking, Fast and Slow that rapid engagement produces a feedback loop that reduces uncertainty and builds confidence faster than rumination. Daily Courage Log. Document each instance where you acted without waiting for readiness. Note the results, lessons learned, and emotional state. Over time, this log demonstrates that you can handle uncertainty, that your fears are rarely as crippling as imagined, and that decisive action begets confidence, not the other way around. Navy SEAL training applies the same principle. Candidates are thrust into high-stress situations with incomplete information, forcing rapid decisions. Each success, however small, compounds into mental resilience. It's easy to say, be decisive, but harder to act when the mind screams hesitation. Waiting for perfect conditions is procrastination in disguise. As Epictetus wrote, don't hope that events will turn out the way you want. Welcome events in whichever way they happen. This is the path to peace. Acting before feeling ready is the path to power. Real-world examples reinforce this principle. The Wright brothers began building airplanes without complete knowledge of aerodynamics. They learned through action, experimentation, and repeated risk-taking. Oprah Winfrey launched her career despite immense personal challenges, stepping into broadcasting without feeling entirely prepared. Far from being reckless, these individuals mastered the skill of deciding before readiness, leveraging action as the engine of growth. Religious and philosophical texts also echo this principle. The Quran instructs in Surah Al-Baqarah 2:286, Allah does not burden a soul beyond that it can bear. The lesson is clear. Hesitation is often fear mislabeling your capacity. Your ability exceeds your perception, but it is revealed only through decisive action. Confidence is not a prerequisite, it is a byproduct. You might think that acting without readiness invites failure. In reality, inaction guarantees stagnation. Far from being reckless, calculated, iterative action under uncertainty produces results, insight, and momentum. Thomas Edison's iterative work on the light bulb exemplifies this. Every failure, every experiment, every premature attempt brought him closer to success. Waiting for perfection would have delayed progress indefinitely. Let's make it practical. Today, identify one decision you have been postponing due to lack of readiness. Take the first step now, engage in one micro-decision under time pressure. Act immediately on something minor but meaningful, document the experience and the lesson learned in a daily courage log. By repeating these habits, decisiveness becomes instinctual. Your mind begins to trust your judgment. Fear of uncertainty diminishes. You gain a habit of action over hesitation, courage over doubt, and momentum over stagnation. No one can deny that waiting feels safer. What's often overlooked is that safety is a trap that guarantees mediocrity. Leaders, innovators, and high performers know the truth. Your success is determined by how quickly you act, how often you iterate, and how consistently you refuse to wait for readiness. You've now built a foundation. You mastered fear, cultivated obsession, learned from failure, and silenced your inner critic. Your next step is to learn the currency of influence, persuasion, authority, and trust, so that your decisions resonate not only within you but across the people and systems you lead. Chapter 6. The pain of discipline beats the pain of regret. Discipline is not glamorous. It's not celebrated on social media. It doesn't come with applause. Yet it is the quiet, unrelenting force that separates winners from dreamers. Instant gratification is seductive. It whispers, take the easy path, relax, postpone, indulge. This impulse destroys potential, erodes character, and builds a life of quiet regret. The real question is not whether you will enjoy comfort today, but whether you are willing to suffer now for a future you actually deserve. Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors in history, did not amass his fortune by chasing trends, fads, or emotional impulses. He practiced patience, discipline, and consistency over decades. Buffett famously said, "The stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient." Notice the subtle truth. Discipline compounds, and impatience destroys. The same principle applies not only to wealth but to every area of life, relationships, health, skills, and influence. The pain of discipline today is small compared to the enduring pain of regret tomorrow. Athletes illustrate the same principle vividly. Olympians spend years, often decades, in silent preparation. They endure grueling training schedules, dietary restrictions, and repetitive drills that most of the world would consider unbearable. Yet they persist because they understand an unspoken truth: suffer now or suffer forever. Far from being masochistic, this approach is pragmatic. The pain of discipline is immediate, measurable, and purposeful. The pain of regret is lifelong, ambiguous, and crushing. It's not that discipline is inherently painful. It's that short-term discomfort has long-term payoff, while comfort without effort leads to erosion. Seneca wrote in Letters from a Stoic, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Instant gratification is the modern manifestation of that waste. Whether scrolling social media, eating junk food, or avoiding hard work, every act of indulgence today compounds into limitation tomorrow. So how do we cultivate discipline and embrace temporary discomfort as a tool for mastery? The key is to reframe pain as investment, not punishment. Daily habits become the micro-compounders of character, resilience, and achievement. Here are 3 actionable habits that instill this mindset. The 2-minute rule for delayed gratification. Every day, commit to completing a task you are inclined to postpone for comfort. It could be exercise, a difficult conversation, or writing a report. Do it for just 2 minutes initially. Not because 2 minutes is transformative alone, but because it trains your mind to prioritize action over comfort. James Clear, in Atomic Habits, emphasizes Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. Small, consistent acts of discipline yield massive long-term benefits. Visualize the cost of regret. Spend 5 minutes daily imagining the life you would lead if you consistently chose comfort over effort. The goal is not fear-mongering but clarity. Rumi wrote, "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself." Self-discipline is a long-term investment. By visualizing the consequences of inaction, you align immediate discomfort with a meaningful outcome. Structured reward delays. Introduce deliberate delays between action and reward. If you want to check your phone, complete a priority task first. If you crave a treat, finish a workout or study session first. This practice reconditions the brain to associate gratification with achievement rather than impulse, training mental resilience over time. Epictetus reminds us, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Discipline is freedom, and mastery is the reward for enduring temporary discomfort. Don't just take my word for it. Look at Warren Buffett's practice of reading 500 pages a day in his youth, or Olympians waking at 4 a.m. for years without fanfare. Not because it is easy, but because habitual discipline creates leverage over life, over opportunities, and over fate itself. Far from being arbitrary, these sacrifices are strategic, deliberate, and measurable. Instant gratification is the silent thief of dreams. It erodes attention, inflates desire, and diminishes performance. Kahneman highlights in Thinking, Fast and Slow that humans are wired for immediate reward, which is why self-discipline requires conscious intervention. This isn't natural, but it is trainable. By practicing structured delay, visualizing regret, and incrementally building mental toughness, you shift the balance from impulse to intent. Religious texts reinforce this principle. The Quran instructs in Surah Al-Asai 103:2-3 Indeed, mankind is in loss, except for those who believe and do righteous deeds and encourage one another to truth and patience. Discipline, patience, and purpose act as shields against the decay of indulgence. The Bible echoes this in Proverbs 13 verse 11. Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. Compounded effort, not fleeting pleasure, produces lasting results. It's easy to say, discipline is important, but harder to endure the discomfort daily without instant recognition. This is why habit design matters. The more you integrate structured discomfort into your day, the more natural it becomes. The more consistent the practice, the less intimidating each new challenge appears. Over time, discomfort transforms from enemy into signal, a reminder that you are building leverage over your future self. You might think that short-term indulgence brings happiness. In reality, far from being pleasurable, it sows regret and undercuts potential. Discipline is not about deprivation. It is about strategic investment of energy, time, and focus. The pain you feel today is temporary. The reward is exponential, enduring, and tangible. Let's make it practical. Today, choose one area of your life where you habitually seek comfort. Commit to structured discipline for 30 minutes focused on that area. Visualize the cost of neglect over the next year if you continue choosing ease over effort. Write it down, implement one reward delay. Complete a priority task before indulging in a habit that provides instant pleasure. By repeating these practices daily, you condition yourself to prefer the long-term payoff over short-term relief, turning discomfort into leverage and regret into wisdom. You are now building the mental infrastructure to endure sacrifice, embrace growth, and create your legacy. No one can deny that instant gratification feels good. What's often overlooked is that regret is far more painful, far more permanent, and far more insidious. Discipline is the shield against mediocrity. Patience, persistence, and strategic suffering are the engine of excellence. You mastered fear. You cultivated obsession. You embraced failure. You silenced your inner critic. You acted before readiness. Now, the final skill before influence and execution is the ability to maximize every moment through structured discipline, the force multiplier of achievement. Chapter 7. Surround yourself with winners or stay a loser. Your environment is more powerful than your willpower. It shapes your mindset, amplifies your habits, and directly influences your results. The real question is not whether talent or intelligence will carry you, it won't. Whether you like it or not, the people, energy, and culture around you define your trajectory. Environment is a force multiplier or a silent anchor, accelerating your success or ensuring your stagnation. Consider Jim Rohn, one of the greatest personal development thinkers of our time. He famously said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." Look closely at this idea. Not only does it highlight the importance of peers, but it also exposes a painful truth. If you surround yourself with mediocrity, laziness, or cynicism, your potential is throttled before it even surfaces. The energy, habits, and expectations of those around you leak into your behavior, often unconsciously. This principle has been demonstrated in real-world performance. Elite peer networks accelerate learning, motivation, and achievement. Consider the mentorship models in Silicon Valley. Founders like Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, and Reid Hoffman intentionally surround themselves with high-caliber peers, advisors, and teams. These environments are not casual. They are curated ecosystems where excellence is normalized, accountability is relentless, and innovation is inevitable. Not because luck intervenes, but because habits and attitudes are contagious. The same is true in athletics. Michael Jordan, despite being a prodigious talent, famously credited much of his success to the teammates and competitors who pushed him relentlessly. His work ethic was amplified by the environment. Every practice, every game, every encounter demanded his best. Far from being isolated genius, Jordan's dominance emerged from constant exposure to excellence and challenge. Surrounding yourself with winners is not elitist or unnecessary. In reality, it is pragmatic. Energy is contagious, ambition is contagious, and mediocrity is contagious. Far from being trivial, your social and professional circles act as compounders of success or failure. Just as financial investments grow or stagnate based on structure, your life grows or withers based on the company you keep. So how do you create a winning ecosystem? The first step is to audit your relationships ruthlessly. Identify who lifts you, who inspires you, and who pushes you to action. Then identify those who drain energy, normalize mediocrity, or consistently undermine your ambition. Not because people are inherently bad, but because alignment with ambition is non-negotiable if you intend to dominate your life. Here are 3 daily habits that ensure your environment amplifies success. Relationship audit. Once a month, list your closest associates, mentors, and social circles. Evaluate their influence on your goals. Ask, do they challenge me? Do they hold me accountable? Do they inspire growth? If not, adjust exposure. This is not about ego or judgment. It is about strategic alignment. Sun Tzu reminds us, the commander who surrounds himself with capable and disciplined officers will be victorious. Replace officers with peers. The principle is the same. Your circle determines your battlefield outcomes. Energy alignment practice. Begin every interaction with awareness. Notice the energy, focus, and attitude of the people you engage with. Avoid extended exposure to negativity or complacency. Seek out conversation and collaboration that elevates thought, reinforces discipline, and models excellence. This daily practice trains your perception and ensures you are constantly absorbing productive influence. Intentional networking. Commit to engaging with at least one high performer weekly, either through mentorship, collaboration, or observation. Not only does this provide knowledge and insight, but it also models the standards and habits required to succeed. As Seneca wrote, associate with those who will make a better man of you. Deliberate networking transforms abstract ambition into tangible influence. It's easy to say, surround yourself with winners, but harder to act consistently. Most people tolerate mediocre friendships and toxic environments for comfort, familiarity, or fear of confrontation. This is the trap of convenience over growth. The more important issue is recognizing that your results are inseparable from the context you inhabit. Your environment is not background noise, it is a fundamental determinant of your performance. Consider the real-world example of mentorship in business. Reid Hoffman, co-founder of LinkedIn, cultivated peer relationships and advisory networks long before LinkedIn succeeded. He intentionally placed himself in rooms with smarter, more ambitious, and more disciplined people than himself. Far from being arrogant, he understood a simple truth. Exposure to excellence elevates action, insight, and decision-making faster than any isolated effort. Religious and philosophical wisdom aligns with this principle. The Quran says in Surah Al-Mujadila 58:22, "Do not take those as allies who ridicule your religion and mock your principles. Do not befriend those whose hearts are far from guidance." Likewise, Proverbs 13 verse 20 states, "Walk with the wise and become wise, associate with fools and get in trouble." These texts emphasize that your associations are not trivial. They are strategic determinants of success or failure. You might think changing your circle is harsh, even cruel. In reality, it is essential. Far from being unkind, it is an act of responsibility toward yourself and others. You cannot afford to let convenience or loyalty override the imperative to grow, excel, and dominate your domain. Let's make it practical. Today, conduct a quick audit of your 5 closest contacts. Note whether they lift or limit your performance. Decide on an adjustment. More exposure to the high performers, less exposure to the low performers. Seek one new high-quality connection this week, someone whose mindset, discipline, or results exceed your own. Learn from them. Observe their habits. Model their behavior. Introduce an energy alignment ritual. Before meetings or calls, set a mental intention to absorb positivity, clarity, and action-oriented energy. Avoid engagement with negativity unless absolutely necessary. By repeating these practices daily, your environment becomes a strategic asset. Energy, discipline, and ambition are amplified. Toxicity, distraction, and mediocrity are minimized. Your trajectory begins to reflect not only your effort, but also the leverage of your network, culture, and peers. No one can deny that who you spend time with matters. What's often overlooked is how intentional you must be in cultivating influence, energy, and alignment. Surrounding yourself with winners is not optional. It is non-negotiable if you intend to lead, dominate, and create impact. You mastered fear. You cultivated obsession. You embraced failure. You silenced your inner critic. You acted before readiness. You endured discipline over instant gratification. Now, you must ensure that your environment magnifies these habits rather than undermining them. Chapter 8. Action is the only antidote to fear. Fear is not defeated by thinking, reasoning, or overanalyzing. Fear is defeated by action. It is not the absence of doubt that produces results. It is repeated, deliberate action in spite of doubt. The real question is not how to eliminate fear, but how to move so consistently that fear loses its grip over your mind, body, and decisions. This principle has been proven in every domain where high stakes, uncertainty, and pressure meet human performance. Consider Navy SEALs, the pinnacle of elite military training. They are deliberately placed in life-or-death scenarios from day one, where hesitation can cost lives. Yet SEAL instructors do not teach fear management through philosophy or meditation alone. They teach movement, repetition, and instinctual response. Cadets repeatedly practice high-stress maneuvers until their brain and body react automatically. Far from eliminating fear, they train fear to coexist with decisive action. Momentum becomes their armor. Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, among modern entrepreneurs, display the same principle in business. Both faced staggering uncertainty and risk, launching rockets that could fail catastrophically or building companies in unproven markets. They did not wait for certainty. They acted, iterated, and adapted. Musk once said, "Failure is an option here. If things are not failing, you are not innovating enough." Notice the subtle wisdom. Fear is inevitable, but inaction is optional. The antidote is movement, not contemplation. Chess masters also illustrate this truth. Grandmasters train hundreds of hours on tactical drills, opening theory, and endgame simulations. When fear arises, time pressure, complex positions, critical decisions, it is not intellect alone that guides them, but practiced, repeated action under stress. The brain rewires itself through repetition, transforming fear into calibrated instinct. This process is scientific and measurable, as neuroplasticity research shows. The more you act, the more pathways your brain builds for confident decision-making under pressure. It's easy to say, act despite fear, but harder to execute. Our minds instinctively seek comfort, hesitation, and delay. Kahneman's thinking, Fast and Slow, explains that humans default to the slower, cautious system when risk is perceived. Far from being a flaw, this is evolution. Yet in the modern world, hesitation is not protective, it is destructive. The more important issue is recognizing that thought without action compounds fear, whereas repeated action dissipates it. Let's explore 3 daily habits to rewire your brain through action. Micromomentum exercises. Identify one task daily that triggers hesitation, fear, or avoidance. Begin immediately, even if only for 5 minutes. Not because the task alone is monumental, but because moving first trains the neural pathways of courage and initiative. As Goggins says, motivation is crap. Discipline and action are everything. Over time, micromomentum becomes a habit, and habit becomes instinct, fear mapping, and execution. Write down the specific fears that are holding you back. For each, identify the smallest action you can take to confront it today. For example, if public speaking terrifies you, deliver a 1-minute talk to a mirror or friend. Not because it is perfect, but because action shrinks fear and teaches competence. This is the principle behind exposure therapy and deliberate practice, proven in psychology as the fastest route to confidence. End-of-day reflection on action each night. Note every instance where you acted despite hesitation. Record what worked, what failed, and what you learned. This reflection reinforces the connection between action and growth, showing your brain that fear is surmountable, measurable, and temporary. Marcus Aurelius advised, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Action precedes identity, and identity solidifies through repetition. Don't just take my word for it. Look at real-world outcomes. Entrepreneurs who endlessly plan without execution stagnate. Athletes who visualize but don't practice falter. Navy SEALs who hesitate under pressure fail. Action creates feedback, momentum, and growth. Thought alone rarely produces measurable results. Far from being theoretical, this principle applies universally. Your life is determined by the cumulative effect of what you actually do, not what you contemplate. The principle extends to faith and philosophy. The Quran repeatedly emphasizes action alongside intention. Surah Al-Baqarah 2:286 reminds us, Allah does not burden a soul beyond that it can bear. The key takeaway, the capacity is there, it is revealed through action. Similarly, the Bible instructs in James 2:17, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. Knowledge and intention without movement are impotent. Action is the only mechanism for transformation. It's not that fear disappears completely. It is that movement becomes automatic in spite of fear, and momentum becomes a shield. Just as a boulder rolling downhill gains unstoppable force, your repeated actions build compounding courage. Far from being abstract, this is measurable. Neuroplasticity studies show that repetitive engagement in challenging tasks rewires neural pathways, lowering stress response, increasing confidence, and accelerating decision-making under pressure. Practical example. A salesperson terrified of rejection schedules 5 cold calls daily, regardless of initial fear. After weeks, the fear diminishes, confidence grows, and performance improves. The same principle applies to leaders, creatives, athletes, and innovators. Fear is defeated one deliberate action at a time. Let's make it actionable today. Identify one fear or hesitation that has stalled your progress. Commit to immediate action. No matter how small, implement one micromomentum exercise. Moving before the mind can conjure excuses or paralysis. End your day with reflection. Document what action overcame fear and how it affected your performance or mindset. By repeating these practices, fear becomes an informational signal, not a barrier. You train your mind to interpret hesitation as a prompt for movement, not an excuse for delay. Momentum crushes fear, momentum accelerates results, and momentum builds unshakable confidence. You mastered fear intellectually. You cultivated obsession. You embraced failure. You silenced the inner critic. You acted before readiness. You endured discipline over instant gratification. You aligned with winners. Now, you must convert all these lessons into relentless, fearless action. Chapter 9. Secrets of the Ruthless Mindset. Winners think differently. Not just harder or smarter, they think ruthlessly. They focus obsessively, embrace calculated risk, and ignore excuses with surgical precision. This mindset is deliberately cultivated through daily practice, rigorous self-discipline, and unwavering clarity of purpose. The real question is not how to become fearless or productive. It's how to hardwire your brain to think like a winner, even when the world conspires to distract, intimidate, or deter you. Consider Elon Musk, whose relentless focus on SpaceX, Tesla, and other ventures demonstrates obsession coupled with ruthlessness. He simultaneously navigates staggering complexity, tight deadlines, and public scrutiny, yet his decisions are guided by objective reasoning, uncompromising priorities, and the refusal to tolerate excuses. Far from being reckless, Musk exemplifies the principle that ruthless clarity of thought converts chaos into leverage. Similarly, Serena Williams achieved historic dominance not through raw talent alone, but through mental discipline and obsession with process. She visualized every serve, every match, and every scenario thousands of times, training her mind to react decisively under pressure. Mental rehearsal and visualization are the secret weapons of elite performers. They create instinctual readiness, turning fear and hesitation into precision, focus, and resilience. You might think being ruthless implies cruelty or disregard for others. In reality, ruthlessness in mindset is internal. It is about refusing to tolerate mediocrity, distraction, or hesitation within yourself. Far from being harsh, it is necessary. Just as Sun Tzu writes in The Art of War, in the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. The ruthless mind does not cower from chaos. It seeks opportunity, calculates risk, and acts decisively. Let's explore 3 core characteristics of the ruthless mindset. Relentless focus. Winners are merciless with attention. They identify the highest leverage activities that move the needle toward their goals and ruthlessly eliminate distractions. Not because life is simple, but because clarity of focus multiplies every action. Consider Warren Buffett, who famously says, "The difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything." Focus is not passive. It is selective, intentional, and relentless embrace of risk. Winners do not avoid danger. They calculate and embrace it. Far from being reckless, risk-taking is methodical, informed, and deliberate. Jeff Bezos risked everything on Amazon when it was still a small online bookstore. He ignored societal pressure, personal doubt, and short-term fear, acting on the belief that long-term compounding and strategic risk produce outsized results. The more important issue is that avoiding risk may feel safe, but it guarantees mediocrity. Excuse-free discipline. Excuses are the mortal enemy of achievement. Far from being powerless, winners use excuses as data points, not as barriers. They analyze, adjust, and move forward regardless of circumstance. Navy SEALs exemplify this principle in every training evolution. Failure is acknowledged, but excuses are irrelevant. As David Goggins states, "You are in danger of living a life so comfortable and soft that you will die without ever realizing your true potential." The ruthless mindset refuses comfort when excellence demands action. It's easy to say, adopt a ruthless mindset, but harder to internalize it. Most people operate on autopilot, guided by fear, convenience, and habit. The more important issue is that thinking differently is a skill that can be trained and amplified daily. Far from being mysterious, it relies on deliberate practice, visualization, mental rehearsal, and internal dialogue that models the elite. Here are 3 daily habits to cultivate a ruthless mindset. Mental rehearsal. Spend 10 to 15 minutes each day visualizing scenarios that challenge you. For example, rehearse a difficult conversation, a high-stakes presentation, or critical decision. Imagine every possible obstacle, then visualize yourself acting decisively and successfully. Not because imagination replaces action, but because your brain rewires itself to respond instinctively and without hesitation. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Visualization turns obstacles into familiar territory. Daily risk assessment. Each morning, identify one action that stretches your limits, challenges comfort, or carries calculated risk. Execute it with intention, not because risk is glamorous, but because regular exposure builds courage, decision-making skill, and resilience. Far from being optional, this ritual trains your mind to act decisively under pressure. Excuse audit. At the end of each day, review moments where you allowed excuses, hesitation, or doubt to influence your behavior. Write down how you could have acted differently. Then, commit to removing one habitual excuse moving forward. This habit internalizes accountability, builds mental toughness, and transforms excuses into actionable data. Don't just take my word for it. Look at the extraordinary. Elon Musk, Serena Williams, Jeff Bezos, and countless Navy SEALs demonstrate that ruthless thinking produces extraordinary output. The combination of focus, calculated risk, and excuse-free discipline accelerates results, creates opportunity, and converts potential into performance. It is practical, measurable, and repeatable. Religious and philosophical texts reinforce this principle. The Quran emphasizes steadfastness in pursuit of goals. Surah Al-Imran 3:200 states, "O you who believe, persevere and strive, and remain steadfast, and fear Allah, so that you may succeed." Similarly, Proverbs 21 verse 5 declares, "The plans of a diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty." These teachings highlight that success is not random. It emerges from intentional mental habits, decisive action, and relentless focus. Ruthlessness is self-directed. It is about demanding excellence from yourself, modeling resilience, and building habits that make hesitation, distraction, and mediocrity impossible. Far from being optional, it is the defining factor between ordinary results and extraordinary success. Practical implementation today. Schedule 15 minutes of mental rehearsal. Visualize critical tasks, anticipate obstacles, and see yourself acting decisively. Identify one calculated risk you can take today that advances your goals. Act without delay. Conduct an excuse audit. List one habitual excuse and develop a concrete strategy to overcome it immediately. By practicing these habits daily, you are rewiring your brain for elite performance. The ruthless mindset becomes instinctual, fear becomes manageable, and hesitation becomes irrelevant. Far from being theoretical, this is actionable mastery of thought and behavior. You mastered fear. You cultivated obsession. You embraced failure. You silenced your inner critic. You acted before readiness. You endured discipline. You aligned with winners. You converted action into momentum. Now, you cement your mindset, ruthless, decisive, and elite, because how you think determines how you perform, and how you perform determines the life you lead. Chapter 10. Lead yourself first, then everyone else. Leadership is not a title, a position, or a certificate. Leadership is self-mastery in action. It is not about managing others before you manage yourself. It is about conquering your mind, your habits, and your decisions first. The real question is not how to influence people externally, but how to command yourself internally. Every great leader, CEO, and military commander understands this principle intuitively. You cannot inspire what you have not mastered within yourself. Consider General James Mattis, one of the most revered military leaders of modern times. Known as the warrior monk, Mattis never commanded blindly. He led by example through discipline, preparation, and personal integrity. He famously said, "The most important 6 inches on the battlefield is between your ears." The battlefield is a metaphor not only for war but for life, business, and personal mastery. Leadership begins with mental, emotional, and ethical command of yourself. Similarly, in the business world, Satya Nadella transformed Microsoft not through mere corporate restructuring, but by shifting his own mindset first. He cultivated empathy, self-discipline, and clarity of purpose, and only then did he influence the culture and performance of millions of employees. Self-leadership is the multiplier for every external achievement. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. You must become the leader within before you can lead outside. It's easy to say, lead yourself first, but harder to do. Most people are reactive, controlled by emotions, habits, and external pressures. This is natural. Human beings are conditioned to respond, not to lead themselves proactively. The more important issue is recognizing that self-leadership is a practice, a set of disciplines, and a series of daily decisions. Without it, external leadership is hollow. Let's examine 3 core pillars of self-leadership. Mental clarity and control. Leaders control their thoughts before they control teams. They actively shape perspective, filter information, and decide what matters most each day. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, reminds us it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Far from being passive, mental control is deliberate. Choose focus, eliminate distraction, and direct energy toward meaningful objectives. Discipline of action. Leadership is inseparable from action. Not because action alone is heroic, but because consistent, disciplined behavior builds credibility, momentum, and authority. CEOs like Indra Nooyi maintained rigorous daily routines that combine strategic thinking with disciplined execution. This discipline transforms potential into results. The real question is not whether you have a knowledge of vision, but whether you act consistently to manifest it. Ethical accountability. Leaders own the consequences of every choice. Not because accountability is convenient, but because self-mastery demands responsibility without excuses. As the Quran emphasizes in Surah Al-Isra 17:13, every soul shall have a record of its deeds. Similarly, James 1 verse 22 instructs, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Leadership is rooted in aligning action with values. Without it, influence is superficial, temporary, and hollow. Here are 3 daily habits to strengthen self-leadership. Morning command ritual. Begin each day by defining your top 3 priorities and the exact actions required. Not because tasks alone guarantee success, but because clarity at the start of the day sets the trajectory for decisions, focus, and behavior. Far from being trivial, this practice trains your brain to lead yourself intentionally rather than reactively. Evening accountability reflection. Each night, review your decisions, actions, and behaviors. Ask, did I lead myself effectively today? Where did I falter? Where did I excel? Not to punish, but to internalize lessons and strengthen discipline for tomorrow. This habit transforms experience into deliberate improvement, building long-term self-command. Self-command micro-exercises. Throughout the day, intentionally confront moments of hesitation, distraction, or emotional impulse. For example, if you feel irritation in a conversation, pause, breathe, and respond with control. Not because external validation matters, but because mastery of self in small moments compounds into leadership excellence over time. Far from being easy, these exercises forge mental toughness and authority. Real-world example. Mahatma Gandhi led an entire movement not through coercion, but through rigorous self-discipline, ethical consistency, and clarity of purpose. His internal mastery radiated outward, inspiring millions to act decisively toward justice and freedom. Similarly, in corporate environments, leaders who manage themselves, time, focus, emotion, create cultures of performance, accountability, and resilience. The ruthless mind, which were discussed in the previous chapter, finds its ultimate expression in self-leadership. It is about making tough decisions first internally, understanding risk, controlling fear, and acting decisively. Self-leadership compounds into influence, performance, and life mastery. It's not that external success is unimportant. It's that external success without internal command is fragile. Just as a captain cannot steer a ship if the helm is loose, you cannot lead others if your mind, habits, and emotions are untrained. Far from being intimidating, this is empowering. You hold the ultimate control over your life, influence, and destiny. Practical application today. Identify one area where you are reactive or inconsistent. Take immediate, disciplined action to correct it. Commit to a morning command ritual. Define priorities and map actions. Execute without delay. Conduct an evening accountability reflection. Honestly assess your self-leadership performance and plan improvements. No one can deny that external challenges are real, but what's often overlooked is that internal mastery dictates external success. Whether you like it or not, the quality of your leadership begins with the quality of your self-command. Far from being optional, it is the foundation for achievement, influence, and personal fulfillment. Now, take responsibility for your life 100%, starting right now. Not tomorrow, not next week. Right now. Lead yourself first. Master your thoughts, discipline your actions, and take accountability for every decision. This isn't the end. It is the beginning of your leadership, your influence, and your success. Remember, your mind is your army, your habits are your battleground, and your life is the campaign. Command them with ruthlessness, clarity, and integrity. Lead yourself first, and everyone else will follow. You are the boss. Own it, lead it, live it,